Welcome to Saturday Storylines, brought to you by Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort, where we dig a little deeper to find out how our FCS teams did over the weekend. So we're going to start with Brian Shawn in West Fargo. And Brian, the Bison go out and get it done once again with a 24-12 home win against a tough Western Illinois team. Now, we know that getting to the quarterback was a huge key in this game. Tell us a little bit more about how they got that done.
Well, I think anytime you can hold a team that's averaging 42 points a game and keep them to just, 2 field goals and not give up an offensive touchdown, you're really doing your job. I mean, no one has been able to slow Western Illinois offensively this year. And North Dakota State had 5 sacks in the first half, forced a turnover late. Western was just totally out of sorts and had a number of 3-and-outs. And what North Dakota State continues to do is rotate a lot of guys up front and generate a lot of pressure that way. There's a lot of different guys that are bringing off the sidelines. That depth is starting to pay off because other quarterbacks are getting frustrated. They're making some mistakes, and that's what we saw with Western Illinois on Saturday. If you're not going to be able to score, it's going to be awfully difficult to beat North Dakota State. So we'll see how the remainder of the schedule goes for NDSU here, starting with Northern Iowa coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's a tough team. But yeah, depth definitely paying off at this point in the year when everyone's getting a little bit dinged up. Helps to have those extra bodies. Well, we'll stay in North Dakota and bring in Alex Heinert. So Alex, the Fighting Hawks were close, but not quite close enough. Like a lot of games for UND this season, it sounds like this defeat swung the opposition's way on a handful of mistakes. So kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's right, Kelly. I mean, other than what you saw there in the highlights a moment ago, 3 plays to me really stand out that could have swung this game in UND's favor. On the Fighting Hawks' first offensive possession, it's a 3rd down and 1 from the Hornet 31, and a bad snap knocks them out of field goal range. And it's a tough break there. And this is a center that had been starting every game so far this year, Patrick Rooney, but just a mistake there and a big problem. 3rd and 2 from midfield in the fourth quarter. A block gets missed. James Johannesson gets knocked down, loses 2 yards. UND's got a punt. The defense gets a big stand. Fighting Hawks get the ball back, and on 1st down, Stetson Carr just can't hang on to this pass. That's right on the money from Andrew Zimmerman. If he makes that grab, UND is in Hornet territory with a chance to tie the game. Again, for as beat up as this team is, I thought they played pretty well on Saturday, and they deserved to get the victory. But it's mistakes like this that have cost them in multiple games this season, including Saturday. And until the execution gets better, this team is going to continue to have a hard time coming out on top.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like they just need a little confidence boost, so we'll see if that comes by the end of the season. But now in Sioux Falls, Tom Nieman. Tom, had a win over the weekend. The Jacks down in Springfield, Missouri, 62-30 against Missouri State. So a lot of people with a 62-point game point at the offense. But you want to talk a little bit about the Jacks' defense. What can you say?
I do. The offense was great, but Missouri State's given up a lot of points, and the Jacks took advantage of that. But the SDSU defense, they had a couple of starters out. Nick Farina, who was ejected last week for targeting, did not even make the trip. Logan Backus, one of their starting linebackers, was out. So you could see there were a lot of sorts early in the game. They don't get fooled here by the Statue of Liberty, though, and could not recover a fumble in the football game. But they stopped Missouri State here on 4th and 1 early in the second half, and then the defensive momentum just started kind of building after that. They figured it out, shut down Missouri State in the second half. They did give up one big play that went for 62 yards, but only gave up 3 points in the second half. Thomas Stacker, one of their young defensive tackles there, with his first solo sack of the season. They got some pressure against Missouri State, a team that had been pretty good at protecting the quarterback, but Christian Rosaboom, number 2 flying in here, has been so good. 18 tackles in this game. They had Noah Urbanek and Sevin Wilson, 2 of their true freshman linebackers. Number 13 here is Urbanek. Made some tackles. Missouri State was held to 1 of 6 on 3rd down in the second half. And again, the Jacks only give up those 3 points in the second half. So yeah, 62 points was obviously awesome on the offensive side, but to hold Missouri State down in the second half, I think was great for South Dakota State's confidence going to Western Illinois coming up this week.
Who was a very good team, like we saw play against NDSU, and even when the Oats played them.
Yep.
So anyways, USD had a loss over the weekend. Jay's not here to talk about it, but someone needs to touch on the subject, so I'll step in. Mistakes costly in the 37-21 loss to Illinois State, but I just want to look at the box score here. I mean, you look at USD's side on the stats, 33 first downs to Illinois State's 20. I mean, 440 pass yards to Illinois State's 236, 554 yards of total offense, 9 of 16 on 3rd downs. You would think that this would end up in the Yotes' favor, but The big stat I'm looking at rushing, USD just 114 yards on the ground to Illinois State's 331. And I talked about USD having 554 yards of total offense. Well, Illinois State had 567. It was just so hard for the Yotes to move the ball on the ground, so they had to send it to the air. Chris Streveler, 63 pass attempts. That's a career record, USD record. But it was just a tough day, and Bob Nielsen said it in his post-game interview. We were just doing things that you can't get away with in the Valley, and everyone talks about the Valley's so good, the Valley's so good. I mean, this was a perfect example of doesn't matter what the records are. If you don't come to play every weekend, you're going to get beat.
Yotes didn't know what to expect out of Illinois State. Illinois State is apparently very good. Some of the surprises, I think, Brian, so far, you got Northern Iowa beat Youngstown State this last weekend. Not a surprise, but surprisingly, Youngstown State is 1-3 right now in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Then you had another game, Illinois State, we just talked about, beat South Dakota. Maybe not surprising. Maybe the final margin was a little bit surprising, but the 330 yards they racked up was a big surprise. Southern Illinois beat Illinois State 42-7 last week, and then Illinois State beats USD. It's just crazy. You've got Southern at USD this week. You've got Northern Iowa at North Dakota State, Brian, and that game is going to be, we don't know what's going to happen there. Northern Iowa's got a running game all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's weird how week to week, literally, teams just look so much different. Some look so much sharper. Others weeks they just look so lifeless, like they're just not firing off the ball. I think we saw that with Illinois State. They just came off the ball so slow. They just didn't look fired up to play. And in the game against South Dakota, you could tell they were just fired up and ready to go. And anytime you go on the road in the Valley, I think it almost gives the defensive guys an extra half step. It just gives them that little extra boost to get off the ball and play harder every play. And, we've seen it. You're not going to play well every week. I mean, North Dakota State did not start off well against Western Illinois. They threw a pick six, and then a couple plays later, Easton Stick threw another interception. Western Illinois had the ball at the 50-yard line with a chance to really take control of the game. The Bison got a 3-and-out, got the ball back, just kind of held on, got a big pass play late. We're still down at half, and then took control in the second half. So it's all about how you handle the adversity in between the course of a game. South Dakota State didn't handle that very well against Northern Iowa a couple weeks at home. Last week started off a little slow again, but it played much, much better in the second half. So it's one of those things where if things aren't going your way, you just got to cleanse it out of the system, get going, and get back to playing football. And that's the only way you're going to get through the Valley, unscathed, so to speak, which is what we've seen here in the first few weeks.
The one constant has been North Dakota State plays defense, and they can run the football, and they do those things consistently, and that's why they came back and won against Western Illinois. But there's some really good games this weekend, Kelly, with Northern Iowa at North Dakota State. That is going to be very good. South Dakota State has to win at Western Illinois if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. Illinois State is at Youngstown State. That's going to be a great game, and then we've got the Coyotes here on Midco Sports Network taking on Southern Illinois. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, a team that stomped Illinois State.
Hey,
and then,
who knows?
Yeah, you got to bring it every week in the Valley. Well, great discussion, guys. Excited for the weekend, so thank you so much. All right, next on Midco Sports tonight, we take it up to Grand Forks to recap UND Hockey's rivalry weekend with Minnesota at the Ralph. Stay tuned.